Isn't that something? Welcome to Van of Action, the van build series where we're taking our 2018 Dodge Promaster van and turning it into a family camper for van life. And thanks for coming by. Along the way, we're sharing our journey, hoping to share some good ideas, save you some time, and save you a bunch of money. And it's April 2024. I haven't posted in a while. I'd like to explain that to you and share with you what's going on. We are in the interior of British Columbia, just a magical place on the Shuswap River, just a phenomenal place. Well, we came from Ontario, Canada in 2020. We made a move here after the first phase of COVID. And you may remember how scary that time was. We were living in Ontario, and our 3 kids after university all found work in British Columbia. And then when COVID hit, they closed their borders. You couldn't fly. British Columbia was very careful. They actually closed the British Columbia border for a couple of weeks. And after the first phase, my wife, who was a nurse in Ontario through SARS, said, "Dave, this could be pretty scary. We've got to get closer to the kids. I want to be inside the borders of British Columbia. In case something goes south, I want to be able to get to the kids if they need us." And so we made the snap decision, and in probably less than a month, we found this place to rent, which is just like winning the lottery. I couldn't believe it. And we got rid of the stuff we couldn't bring with us. We found a van, just bought the only van we could get, and loaded it up with the stuff that we had, and we drove across the country. And at that time, half the gas stations were closed. You couldn't find a washroom. You couldn't find a restaurant. We drove across the country without talking to anybody, it seemed. We got here and spent a month in isolation in the house, not talking to anybody, to make sure we cleansed ourselves of any germs we might have brought with us from Ontario. And then we settled in here, and you've seen the journey since then. But we left Ontario in such a fast pace that we didn't sell anything. We were living in a place, but we also had some apartments that we rented, and that was my pension. And we just, figured everything's going to work out just fine. And it did for a couple of years, but then things started going south there a little bit. So we were back in Ontario. Well, let me see. We left here at the end of April 2023. So almost exactly a year ago, we left this property. We drove to Vancouver to see the kids. We went south into Seattle, drove down through the mountains. It was just an amazing drive down into Santa Fe and spent a couple of weeks in Santa Fe. And then we worked our way back up through Yellowstone Park and Mount Rushmore and the Badlands, came across through South Dakota and then into Wisconsin, crossed Lake Michigan on the Badger, which was just an amazing trip too. And then we worked our way back to Ontario. And we got to Ontario towards about the end of May. Just amazing. And we were in the process of evicting one of our tenants in Ontario. Had to hire a lawyer and do all kinds of stuff. But then the one building that tenant was in, 2 other tenants just packed up and left. It was just awful. It was just, in fact, one of them got kind of ugly. It was, you wonder how human beings can act the way they acted, but they did. So we ended up with a lot of legal bills, a lot of headache, a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, a lot of repairs, a lot of redecorating. What we thought was going to be a month in Ontario turned into 4 months in Ontario of work and, as I say, stress. And during that period, we had some stuff out here we had to do too. So we had to fly back to British Columbia and then take care of business and fly back to Ontario to take care of business. And then along the way, we realized that was one issue, but the second issue was we had some family members that in time in Ontario are getting older and could use our help. At that same time, our children here in BC have moved, their jobs have changed a bit, and so being here isn't as convenient as it could be. As wonderful as it isn't as convenient as it could be. So we made the difficult but easy decision to make a move back to Ontario, and that's what we're in the process of doing now. The end of April, we leave this property and we start heading back to Ontario, which I'm going to document. But that's not going to be a van life trip. That's going to be a U-Haul life trip because the van is still back in Ontario. We didn't have time to drive it back and forth. And of course, now that the van's finished, we can't pack our stuff in it here to move it back to Ontario either. So it's been the last 9-10 months have been rather complicated for the van of action lifestyle, but that's just the way life goes. We're sad to leave here. This has just been an amazing place, and but the journey is going to continue. In fact, in the end, we're moving back at the 1st of May. In the middle of June, we're heading to the East Coast. We're going to go to the Maritime provinces for a while, and then in August, we're coming back out west here to British Columbia to visit our kids and the friends that we've made here. And then after that, we'll be back to Ontario again in the fall. Look at that. An empty shop. The tools are packed. Makes me sad. I'm going to take my drill press with me, though. I promise you that. I'm not getting rid of that puppy. Anyway, and then we'll spend some time in Ontario. And then the plan is that after Christmas, we'll head south for a couple of months, hopefully. And maybe 3 or 4 months. We're not sure. And the goal is to get our life back together a little more sensibly, because I'm too old for all this screwing around, you know. I want to start enjoying things a little bit more. But you got to do what you got to do, and that's what we got to do. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll be back sooner than later. And give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And God bless you all. And we can miss this together. Cheers.